today then, so what we're doing is we're using something called storytelling, or the story technique, to remember points in a speech that you would be able to deliver without any notes. Now, obviously, if you're going to ever deliver a speech on something, you need to be knowledgeable. What we're not remembering is a speech, for example, we're not writing the whole speech down. We're remembering points in the speech, and you've got to be able to think what those certain points are. Now, in the example I'm going to use today, I'm going to use 10 points. So this is 10 points that I would use in a speech if I was asked to do this speech. So this is the story technique, and it involves you knowing your speech and then picking out the 10 points that you want to be able to deliver in the speech. You can use 10, 20, 15, 5, 10, up to you. You can keep building on this story technique. So everybody, I'm going to take a sip of water. Helps the brain, the old sip of water. And I'm going to tell you a story. So please, can you settle in? It's like Jackanory. Does anybody remember Jackanory? If you remember Jackanory telling a story, pop that in the chat and say hi. So anyway, so here's the story. Once upon a time, there was a young man. And this young man wanted to improve his productivity. He wanted to get stuff done. So he went to his local library and bought a massive book of knowledge. And he had that book of knowledge in front of him, and he sat down and he put on his big glasses, his big Elton John glasses. And as soon as he put those Elton John glasses on, behind him came Dracula. Rah! Dracula behind him. And he was scared. He was scared of Dracula. And then Dracula started ripping up his paper and calling him a failure and telling him he wasn't good enough and he couldn't do it. He wasn't good enough. You're a big imposter. How dare you read this book of knowledge, Dracula said. So the guy thought, I'm not having any of this. I'm going to put on my big cloak, and that cloak gives me confidence, and I am going to succeed. And he jumped out of the chair and ran to the success line. He ran to the success line. He ran to the success line, and he got there and he discovered a big map, a big massive map. And he thought, this map is huge. I can't read all this map. I need to make it smaller. So he folded down the corners of the map and made it into little tiny maps. And this all took lots of time. And he realized, he looked at his watch and he went, right, I can't do this now. I need to put this off. I need to put this off in another place, maybe tomorrow, maybe next Thursday. Now, folks, I'm going to end my story there. But that was the story I have told myself and linked to things in a speech that I'm going to do. So I'm going to quickly go over it again so it's in your head. Here we go. Young man goes to the library. He gets a big book. He gets the book. He puts on his glasses. And Dracula pops over his shoulders and says, you're a failure, and starts ripping the book. You're not good enough. You are an imposter. You're an imposter. You're an imposter. The young man puts his cloak on. He sees that line in front of him, that success line, and runs us to the success line. Knows he can be a success. Then he meets the big plan. The big plan is too big, so he folds it up into little pieces, and then he looks at his watch and goes, can't do this now, I'm going to put this off. Okay, there's the story. Now you're thinking, Steve, you just told us a story, and what are you doing? What are you doing? This is nothing to do with memory. You just talked about this stupid, nonsensical story. Well, no, this is a story to start a speech. And this is the speech that I sometimes do when I tell people, or we talk about the reasons why people don't finish their projects off. What are the barriers that stop people finishing their projects? Now, I'm doing a lot of research on this at the moment, as a lot of you know, and I know ins and outs to those bullet points, but I also know the solutions. So in this particular story, I can tell you a I can give you a speech with this story. So should we go through it? What are the points I'm making? Well, the young man is me. And I need to look at the book of knowledge. And the first reason why people don't succeed is they have no vision. They don't have their glasses on. The next couple of reasons why people don't finish or maintain momentum and finish is because they are fearful of failure. Ripping the book, do you remember? They feel they're not good enough. I'm not good enough. Remember Dracula saying it. They feel they are an imposter syndrome. Remember the cloak of confidence. That's actually one of the techniques. If you feel like you're an imposter, is to put on a cloak of confidence. They put on the confidence and they're running to success. Well, would you believe it? Some people are fearful of success. So I've just covered there 6 points already. No vision, and then the 5 points of failure. And we all know what failure or fear means, don't we? False evidence appearing real, but that's for another time. So that's all about beliefs. The next part of the story, the man gets up and starts running, doesn't he? And he goes to the success line, which he's fearful of. But then he meets a big, massive plan and it's too big for him. Well, that's one of the reasons why people stop. It's because their plan is too big. They don't focus it down. What does the young man do? He makes it into small little pieces. Now, that's another reason why people don't maintain momentum or finish. It's too small. It's too boring. It's not challenging enough. So then he breaks it down, doesn't he, into those little pieces. And what does he do, folks? What does he do? Come on, tell me, what does he do? He basically folds it up into little pieces, doesn't he? And he puts it on the shelf when he looks at his watch and he says to himself, I haven't got time for this. I haven't got time for this. So you know what I'll do? I'll just put it off. I'll put it off to another time. I'll do something else. What's that? It's procrastination. So I've just listed 10 reasons why people don't maintain momentum start. Vision, fear, failure, not good enough, imposter, success, big fears, the big 5 fears why people, big 5 beliefs, big 5 reasons, big 5 things they tell themselves why they can't succeed. And the next part of the story is the planning, isn't it? Yeah, they don't have a plan. They don't have a plan. And the plan is far too big. It's too much. I'm going to lose 3 stone in 2 days. Too big. Too big. Plans too big. I'm going to make £1 million in whatever. You know what those sort of plans are like. Or the plans folded up are small. So it's too small. So little tiny, we think we're winning. We think we're having productivity. We think we're getting on. We're not really. We're just doing little things. You know the thing, don't you? When you've got a big plan and a big thing to do, what do you go off and do? You tidy up your bedroom or you go and do the kitchen or you put the washing on and you do the little things that don't matter. And then the last point, the big point, number 10, and I could go on. There's a lot more. But number 10, of course, was he put it off and procrastination. So I've just used the story technique to remember the start of a speech. Now, if I was going to do this speech, what I would do is I would go through those. I wouldn't tell the story, obviously. I'm not going to sit down and talk about glasses and Dracula and finishing lines. But I would say, folks, there's 10 reasons, I believe there's 10 reasons why people don't continue with what they're doing. Sometimes it's about their beliefs, their planning, and their procrastination. Let me break them down a little bit and I talk about them because I know the subject. And then what I would do is maybe I'd ask the audience and say to them, come on, audience, what do you think? What's the reasons why you don't, you don't get on and you don't complete things and finish things? Maybe you want to write those in the chat as well and see if they're the same as mine. So write in the chat now the reasons why perhaps you don't, you don't start, you don't continue, or you don't finish. Pop them in the chat, it's okay. And maybe I'll use some of those to do some of these sessions for you. So pop that in the chat for me, folks. So yeah, that's what I'd do. I'd get the audience, bit of participation, and then I'd offer the audience some solutions from the things that I've just talked about. So maybe I pick the Dracula bit, the fear bit, and talk about the fear of failure, talk about not feeling good enough and about those feelings and emotions, talking about the imposter syndrome and that fear of success. and fear of achieving, and what other people would say. That's another one. What other people would say, that's a fear. Who cares? Nobody cares. You know, who cares what somebody says? Doesn't matter, does it? It's about what matters. A good friend of mine once said, it's none of my business what you think of me. I thought that was very powerful. It's none of my business what you think of me. So then in my speech, I would go through those 5 and everybody would go, Steve, that was brilliant. Thank you. Come back again. There we are. And that's how I remember a speech with no notes.